He didn't knock. The door banged against the stopper and my son's voice hit me first. "Why'd you sell the apartment without me?" My wife and I had plans. The steam from my coffee curled up between us like a question mark, and I just set the mug down so I wouldn't spill it on the closing folder sitting by my elbow. Ryan's cheeks were red, a messy blend of anger and something he thought passed for authority. Haley hovered behind him in a puffer vest, arms folded, lips pinched. My kitchen still smelled like cinnamon toast and lemon cleaner. The light was bright, merciless, the kind that shows fingerprints on stainless steel and tells the truth. "Morning to you, too," I said. "Door works both ways." "You should have told us," he fired back, stepping closer. "You should have asked. We had a plan, sweetheart. You raised your voice and skipped, 'Hello,' so I'm going to need you to back up a foot and try that sentence again." I wasn't mad, yet, but I was not about to let a grown man bark in my kitchen. I nudged the Alta settlement statement so it lay square with the folder edge. A tidy piece of paper. The numbers added up. My name spelled right, for once. Haley's eyes flicked to the folder like a hawk sighting a mouse. "This is unbelievable," she said, low, performing shock the way folks do when they think outrage is currency. "We were counting on that place. For what?" I asked. "Holiday photos? Spare closet? Airbnb I didn't approve?" The last word hung there, and Haley blinked. Ryan frowned at me like I'd cussed at Sunday school. "Don't play coy, Mom," he said. "You knew we were going to move on it. You always said you wanted to keep it in the family." "I always said I wanted to keep family," I corrected. "The apartment was never a relative." He made that scoff he learned in college, the one that says he thinks I'm being difficult on purpose. The thing is, I was on purpose, I mean. Difficult is a matter of perspective. Surviving Houston summers and 2 recessions will give a woman perspective. So will standing at a title company signing your name until your wrist hums like a bee, then walking out light as a leaf. He planted both hands on the island like a cop in a TV show. "Why'd you sell it without looping us in?" "Because it belonged to me," I said, calm as butter, and because the looping was starting to feel like a noose. That got me a beat of silence. In that little quiet, the kitchen clock ticked exactly 4 times. The fridge hummed. Outside, a truck downshifted and rattled past, hauling something that smelled faintly of fresh plywood. The world kept moving. I watched my son's jaw work, then relax. He looked tired. There are 100 versions of tired. This one had guilt tucked in the lining. Haley stepped in. "We had a plan," she repeated slower, like I was hard of hearing. "We were going to refresh it, stage it, and short-term it for 6 months. Then refinance and, with whose name on the deed, baby?" I asked, sweet as tea but not sugary. "Whose risk? Whose taxes? Whose insurance when a bachelor party plays slip and slide with the shower curtain?" Her mouth opened, then closed. A gold charm on her necklace caught the light. Ryan drummed his fingers once on the granite. He used to do that on his school desk. Restless hands, big ideas, not a lot of patience for glue sticks and quiet time. That little boy peeped out of the man for a half-second, and my heart thumped an old beat. Then the man came back wearing his new hard voice. "You blindsided us," he said. "I told you we had people ready. The contractor already walked it." I said, because that was true and also not. "You mean the contractor who texted you that he could get in after 3, even though you hadn't asked me for the key?" Color slid up his neck then, a tide he couldn't hold back. He shot Haley a warning glance. She stared at the backsplash like it might explode. I reached for the folder, slid out a little stack of paper clipped together. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need a stage. I just tapped the top page. "Notes from the HOA office," I said. "Dated the same Tuesday you two swung by to say hi and ask, hypothetically, if I needed help managing the online portal." Strange coincidence. Someone requested a second fob for Unit 7C that afternoon. Different mailing address than mine. Whoops! Haley squinted. "That I could have been anyone." "Sure," I said. "Lots of mysterious cousins on Maple Avenue." Ryan sighed, the big theatrical kind, and rolled his shoulders like he was shaking off a bad call on the field. He stared at the papers and then passed them, like the numbers might rearrange into a version of reality he preferred. "We're family, Mom. We're supposed to build together." I could have told him I'd been building since before he was tall enough to see over the countertop, but I wasn't interested in old scorecards. I just pointed at the chair. "Sit. If you want to have a conversation, we can have one. If you want to shout, go find a warehouse." He sat. Haley stood. "Okay," I said softly. "Let me back up just so we're clear. That apartment? I bought it the year your daddy's heartbeat went quiet. 2-bed, 1.5 bath, a view of a brick wall that turned buttery at 5 p.m. in October. It cost more than felt sane and less than it was worth to me. I worked double shifts that year at the hospital, saved like a squirrel with a secret, and put my name on that door so I had a place nobody could yank out from under us." Ryan's eyes softened, just a fraction. He knows the stories. I made sure. "I remember the smell," he said, unexpected and small. "Mrs. Flores's tamales. The hall was always warm and safe," I said. "The super fixed the heat by banging on it with a wrench and whistling 'Stand by me.' The elevator had a mind of its own. You learned to beat it to the stairs by 9. That place saw you through algebra and your first heartbreak. Remember when you and Jamal taped the birthday sign across the whole hallway and the fire alarm got mad about the tape? Remember how we laughed till we cried?" He smiled helplessly. Then it faded. He looked at Haley and squared his shoulders again. "It's not about memories. It's about legacy." "I know," I said. "But legacy starts with boundaries. We are not a dynasty with a crest. We are people with bills and limits." The truth underneath all that talk was simple and raw. Taxes jumped, HOA fees ballooned, and my knees did not care for the 3 flights of stairs during elevator shutdowns. The roof needed work. The building decided to upgrade the lobby with a sculpture that looked like a fork got confused and turned into a pretzel. Costs went up and the math turned lopsided. I could have held on another year, maybe 2, and felt proud of my grit. But here's the part that changed everything. Last spring, the asks started. Not big at first, just the kind that nibble. "Could we borrow the place for a long weekend?" Haley had texted, a Friday at 10:47 p.m., like timing made it casual. "We'll deep clean after!" 4 exclamation points. I said yes because I'm not made of stone. They left it tidy. There were 2 wine corks in the trash and a Yelp receipt tucked under the fruit bowl, Haley's name on it. A note to self. "Great for listing photos. Light pops at noon." Listing photos. Then, 2 weeks later, an email popped up on my laptop while Haley was showing me baby shower ideas. Not pregnant, just planning ahead. Modern world, I don't know. City short-term rental permit. Application draft. Auto-filled with my name, my unit number, and a contact email that wasn't mine. I clicked and watched Haley's reflection in the screen. She never blinked. "Odd," I said. "Where'd this come from?" "Oh, that's probably spam," she chirped. "You know how they scrape addresses." "Sure," I said, filing the sound of her voice away for later. It had that note. The one you use when you hide a cupcake behind your back and hope the dog gets blamed. A week after that, Ryan asked for the HOA portal login so he could pay the water bill for me as a surprise. Sweet idea, wrong direction. I thanked him and said no. He laughed, said, "You're so stubborn, Mom," and kissed my cheek. My phone buzzed after he left. Denise, my neighbor, sent a photo. Haley in the lobby with a man in a polo holding a laser measurer. Caption, "Your DIL is hustling. You remodeling?" I typed back, "News to me. Micro reveals can feel like gnat bites. One won't kill you. A cloud will drive you inside." I didn't accuse them then. I watched. I've been a nurse. You don't grab the thermometer and scream fever. You check again in an hour and watch the little things, the color, the glassy eyes, the way a patient reaches for water without really wanting it. I started taking notes with dates and times, nothing fancy. April 12th, mail, postcard from a staging company addressed to current owner-manager of Unit 7C. April 18th, Ryan joked at Sunday dinner about our someday portfolio, then asked if title companies stayed open late. April 22, call from HOA asking to verify a second fob request. I said no, send notice to my address only. On May 3rd, I walked into the apartment to drop off a humidifier and found a whiteboard on the kitchen counter. Half wiped, a list, paint agreeable gray, fixtures matte black, art, large, neutral, no faces, plants, snake zizzy, rug, jute. At the bottom, in Haley's neat all caps, no family photos. I stood there with my palm on the cool countertop and felt a cold little bloom right behind my sternum. I keep pictures. Not many. One of Ryan with cake on his nose. One of me and his father at the county fair. One of Mama holding a bowl of peaches like a crown. I had tucked them in the coat closet, wrapped in tissue. I pulled the door open. The tissue was torn. The frames were gone. I texted Haley, "Hey honey, did you move some photos from the hall closet?" Timestamp 1:13 p.m. She replied at 1:15, "Oh gosh, yes. I took them to get cleaned up and reframed for you." Don't be mad, it's a surprise. I stared at that little bubble till it dimmed. Folks who plan surprises don't usually preempt the mad. On May 7th, a contractor left a voicemail meant for someone else. "Hey, I can do demo on the wet bar Wednesday if you can get access. No water shutoff needed if we cap quick." I saved it. On May 9th, the city permit office emailed, "Your payment was received," for an inspection fee attached to an application I hadn't submitted. The receipt listed a contact phone number I recognized as Ryan's business cell. I printed it. I don't like paper clutter. Clutter makes my scalp itch, but I like proof. When I asked Ryan about it, he said, "Oh, that? That's the general inspection they do on the whole building sometimes. We just covered it for you because we love you." He smiled then, the brave, shiny kind. I pressed my lips together and let the pause expand until it felt like a room we all had to stand in. "I appreciate the thought," I said. "Next time, ask." "Sure," he said too quickly. "Of course." The next time he did not ask. By June, I had 3 neat paper clips worth of maybes and probablys and at this points. I also had a number in my head, the kind that would let me fix the fence, redo the bathroom here, and set up the little 529 I'd been meaning to open for a grandchild who didn't exist yet. I called Carmen Ruiz from church. She'd sold half the neighborhood at this point, and she has a way of talking numbers that doesn't make my eyes go fuzzy. We met at the coffee shop on Elm, the one with the latte art that always looks like a heart drawn by a left-handed toddler. Carmen didn't blink when I said I wanted it quiet. "Not a pocket listing," she said, "but I'll keep the chatter low. Showings by appointment, no sign. We'll talk to folks who don't need hand-holding." "Perfect," I said. I've held my share of hands. We walked the unit 2 days later. I'd put the photos back where they belonged. If Haley noticed, she didn't say. She hadn't been back since the whiteboard. Carmen took pictures that made the brick wall glow honest. She measured, clicked her tongue, and said, "You kept this place like a prize." I told her it was one. She called me that Friday with an offer from a man named Leonard who'd grown up 3 blocks over and was tired of commuting from Katy. Cash. Clean 30-day close. I didn't play hard to get. I played fair. We countered once on price and twice on closing date to line up with my dentist and the HOA's weird month-end lockout. He agreed. I didn't tell Ryan. Not because I wanted drama, but because I had spent 4 months watching my own child and his wife move chess pieces on a board they didn't own. I am not a pawn. I am a grandmother with good posture and a stronger back than folks expect. The week before closing, I walked into the unit with Carmen to let the inspector in and found a new doormat outside the door. "Welcome, friends." Cute. Not mine. We stepped over it. Inside, a folded brochure lay on the counter. "Staying with us, house rules. No smoking, no glitter, quiet hours after 10. At the bottom, in tiny print, an email address that ended with my son's last name, plus stays. I picked it up with 2 fingers like a lab sample. "You okay?" Carmen asked. "Never better," I said, and slid the brochure into my bag. Later, at home, I tucked it behind the settlement statement in the folder with my passport and my social security card. I had a tidy little file now. If anyone asked me why, I could show, not tell. Closing was quick. Title office, a bowl of wrapped peppermints, the notary with 3 pens and a stamp that made the paper thunk. I initialed, I signed. I asked 2 questions I already knew the answers to, because women of my age are allowed to be thorough. Leonard shook my hand and said, "I'll take good care of it." I believed him. I put the cashier's check into my bank account the same afternoon and sat in the car with the receipt on my knee, the print warm from the machine. The number looked like oxygen. I slept the lightest, sweetest nap that day, the kind that drops you into a blue place and brings you back soft. I woke up to 10 missed calls. That brings us back to my kitchen, where Ryan was sitting and Haley was standing and my coffee had gone lukewarm. "We had plans," he said again, but softer now, like even he could hear how thin it sounded. "Plans," I repeated, "are what you make on your own property. Dreams are free, execution costs, and respect is non-negotiable." I slid one more page across the island. "And before you ask, no, you can't undo it. Funds cleared. Deed recorded at 9:12 a.m. today. I brought you a copy of the public record like the generous woman I am." Haley exhaled through her nose, a little snort. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said kindly. "I'm being precise." Ryan looked at the clock. The light had shifted and turned the lemon cleaner smell into something close to summer. He rubbed his forehead and then pressed his fingers into the bridge of his nose the way his father used to when he'd been on his feet too long. When he dropped his hand, his eyes were wet, just barely. He swallowed. "We weren't trying to hurt you." "I know," I said, and let it be true. "But intentions don't override outcomes. And sweetie, the outcome here was that I started collecting evidence of my own child trying to move me out of decision-making for my own good." His head jerked up. "That's not—" "On April 22nd, I said evenly, you used your business cell as the contact for a permit on a unit you didn't own. On May 3rd, Haley removed family photos for reframing without permission and drafted house rules for guests. On June 1st, a contractor called about demo on a wet bar that would have required an HOA request and a water shutoff you didn't ask for. On June 9th, Denise sent me a picture of you two with a man measuring the living room. On June 13th, a brochure appeared on my counter advertising house rules for a place that was not your house. Haley flushed to the ears. "You're twisting this. We were helping." "You're—" She caught herself and pasted on a smile that didn't reach her pupils. "You're overwhelmed, Margaret." "It's a lot to manage. You shouldn't be making these choices alone." There it was. The note behind the note. I saw the word she hadn't said and felt the old steel slide into place in my spine. "Here's the thing," I said, gentle as a lullaby. "I am alone. I'm also competent. Those 2 facts can be neighbors." Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, breathed. He studied me like I was a door he'd never tried. He wasn't cruel. He was careless with boundaries dressed as ambition. I love him with the kind of love that will make you drive through a flood if you think your baby's on the other side. I also respect myself. Both things can be true in one body. He pushed the papers back toward me and curled his fingers around his knee. "So it's done," he said. "It's done," I said. "And it was going to be done, whether you two were making secret Pinterest boards or not. Your behavior just meant I did it fast, clean, and with my own counsel." "Counsel?" Haley echoed, like the word bit her. I smiled. "You know, grown-up help. The kind you hire when you want your wishes in ink and not just in a group chat. I can walk you through the broad strokes if you'd like. No details you don't need." Ryan stared at the folder, then at me. The clock ticked twice. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked 3 times and quit, like he remembered he'd been scolded. Haley shifted her weight and the charm on her necklace clicked against her collarbone like a tiny metronome. "You could have trusted us," she said finally. "I tried," I said. Then I watched. I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold, but it still tasted like cinnamon and stubbornness. I took a sip and set it down. "Now," I added, "I'm going to make lunch. You're welcome to stay if you can talk to me like you were raised. If not, you can go cool off and we'll try this again tomorrow." Ryan's mouth twitched, contrition trying to get past pride. It didn't make it all the way. He stood, scraped the chair back, and nodded stiffly. We'll come back later, he said, which meant he wanted to talk strategy with Haley where I couldn't see. That was fine. I don't mind folks practicing before they speak to me. Gives me time to set the table. They left. The door closed soft this time. I stood alone in my clean kitchen with the faint smell of lemon and a folder that fit under my palm like a book I'd read a dozen times. I slid the documents back inside. Settlement statement, record of deed, a short letter on very official paper, the kind that has weight. I returned the file to the drawer with the tea towels. Sometimes the safest place for a thing is right where you reach every day. I rinsed my mug, set it to dry, and wrote 3 lines in a spiral notebook I keep for groceries and truths. Closed 9:12 a.m., funds cleared. Spoke to Ryan at home, tone elevated, content, upset about sale. Claims of plans, Haley. Framing, permit, portal, overwhelmed suggestion. Then I wrote one more. Next step, boundaries in writing. I tore out the grocery list underneath, milk, eggs, flour, and tucked it in my pocket. A woman can bake and draw lines in the sand on the same day. We are built for multitasking. I opened the back door to let the afternoon in. Heat moved across the threshold like a living thing. Cicadas buzzed like someone shaking a jar of rice. I breathed in, slow, and felt the steadiness settle. The apartment was gone. The story wasn't. Before continue the story, comment down your location. I want to know from where my lovely fans are watching. He left me with quiet, and quiet is where my mind keeps the good things. I cracked 2 eggs into a bowl, whisked until the yolks turned the color of school bus paint, and let the sizzle of butter in the skillet walk me backward. Back to the first weeks in that building when I could still smell fresh paint under Mrs. Flores's tamales. The hallways hummed like a hive at supper time. If someone's door was open, you'd get pulled into a conversation about weather or work or a coupon that was too good not to share. I signed that first mortgage with a ballpoint that skipped and a hand that shook, and the loan officer offered me a tissue like I might cry. I didn't. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt, because security tastes like metal and sugar at the same time. Back then, the apartment's carpet had a stubborn stain shaped like Florida near the hall. Your father and I laughed about it, promised to cover it with a runner once we could afford one. 9 months later, he was gone, fast and mean, like the lights clicked off in a storm. I learned 2 new sounds that year, the elevator grinding itself awake in the mornings, and my own voice saying, "We'll be okay," to a little boy with hair that stuck up like a wheat field. Ryan would sit on the windowsill and count cars out loud. Blue, red, white, red, blue. The street below never slept. The brick wall across the way turned honey at 5 in October and rose petal in December. That view wasn't fancy, but it kept time with us. My shifts at the hospital ran 12 hours that year and often 14, because if you put your name down as available, they will use you like a favorite spoon. I took every holiday shift I could get, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, so other nurses could be home, and so our mortgage didn't lean too hard on me. I learned to nap in light and wake polite, because patients don't deserve your cranky. I packed lunches with sticky notes for Ryan, meatloaf and blue box, microwave 130, and came home to a kid who'd fallen asleep with a book open like a tent on his chest. We made a game of grocery receipts. He'd circle the biggest number and ask, "Big or small win?" And I'd say, "Win," because we got coupons, and we'd high-five like fools. When he was 9, the building's boiler went on strike for a week in February. The super banged it with a wrench, swore under his breath, whistled "Stand by me," and marched off to buy parts. In the meantime, everyone kept their doors cracked and shared space heaters like casseroles at a wake. I kept a list of who borrowed which wattage, with times next to each name so nobody hogged. It's funny what skills end up mattering. Temperature rounds, neighbor fairness, the way you can calm a crowd by saying a number in a steady voice. We didn't freeze. We got a little closer. Ryan grew tall before he grew sense, but he always came home to me with the kind of honesty that shows up in the first sentence. "Mom, I broke the lamp." Mom, I got a B. Mom, I kissed a girl and I think she laughed. I'd pour 2 glasses of water and say, let's sit, and we'd sit. There was money for basketball shoes because there was not money for camp. He made varsity on ankles kept in shape by running the stairs when the elevator gave up. I tucked $20 bills into a coffee can taped under the sink and wrote filters on it. We knew what it meant. Safety. The first time he brought Haley over, she wore a scarf with tiny strawberries on it and shoes you could outrun rain in. She knocked the right pattern, 2 short, 1 long, because he'd told her the elevator was moody and we might not hear. She said, "This place is cute," and meant it, not like the word you toss at a baby outfit. She ate 2 tamales with hot sauce and cheered when the Rockets won. I liked her then. I liked the intention in her eyes, the way she asked about people with their names, not their roles. She brought me a candle in a mason jar that smelled like oranges, and I lit it every Sunday for a month. Time shifts slow and then pops. They married on a deck strung with lights in someone's cousin's backyard, and rain held off like it had manners. We danced, and I let happiness sit heavy on us because I wanted it to memorize the route. After the cake was boxed and the coolers lugged, Haley hugged me hard and said, "Thank you for raising him." I said, "You're welcome," and meant it like a prayer. What I didn't see then were the ways people grow into their ideas of comfort. We all do it. For me, comfort has always been a list I can point at. The mortgage paid, the electricity current, the pantry lined like soldiers, beans, rice, tomatoes, flour. For them, it started to look like leverage. An asset is something you can bend until it makes money while you sleep. I don't hate the idea. I hate when the asset is a person. 6 years ago, the HOA decided the lobby needed a contemporary statement and bought a sculpture that looks like a fork got stage fright. Fees went up. The roof needed love. Insurance climbed like ivy. My ankles started to talk to me on stairs in the kind of whisper you can't ignore. I took a pen to paper and did the arithmetic with my reading glasses sliding down my nose. Owning can be a warm blanket. It can also be a brick backpack. I had 2 choices then, and kept both in my pocket for a while. Sell and make a painless exit while the market grinned. Or hold on and let it bleed me slowly because I liked the story of having it. Stories are powerful. So are line items. I didn't tell anyone how much the electric jumped the summer the building replaced the old hall lights with the new always-on kind, the ones that think they're helping. I didn't complain when the elevator stopped at every floor just to check in like a needy friend. I kept the ledger neat and the conversations kind. And when I needed 3 fillings, I paid the dentist and said thank you like he'd served me dinner. What changed wasn't the math, so much as the asking. It came dressed in favors. I don't mind helping. I mind being volunteered. You can love your child with your whole chest and still hate a tone. "We've got it handled, Mom," Ryan started to say like I had asked him to lift a couch. "We'll manage the portal," Haley said, like I was a guest at my own house. That's the moment stakes grew legs. Money is simple if you write it down. Dignity is where the complexity lives. I am a woman with a pension that doesn't stretch like it used to, arthritis that sits in my thumb like a pebble in a shoe, and a whole life's worth of making do. But I am not a project to manage, and I am not a resource for someone else's vision board. The risk was never that I'd run out of dollars. The risk was that I'd get written out of my own story under the banner of care. Care when it's honest asks before it moves. The things that happened around Unit 7C did not ask. They moved like a person skimming your plate with a fork while telling you about your cholesterol. And when I put my hand over the plate, folks called me difficult. On a Tuesday in late May, Ryan stopped by with a bag of tacos and a grin. "I paid 2 months of your HOA, he said as he set the salsa down, like he'd bought me diamonds. "Don't freak out. It was on my card. We'll settle later." I wiped the counter and set 2 plates down. "I appreciate the kindness," I said steady. "Don't do that again," he blinked. "Why?" "It's easy." "Because easy for you becomes habit for me," I said. And then easy turns into precedent. Next thing you know, a committee is voting on where I can hang my bath towels. He laughed, then saw I wasn't joking. He reached for a napkin, and the corner caught a little sticky note I'd left under the fruit bowl. HOA due 6/1, paid online at 8:22 a.m. Confirmation, A71234. He read it, looked up at me, and I watched him file it under the place where Mom keeps surprising him. He kissed my cheek and changed the subject to the Astros. That weekend at church, I asked Carmen how quickly a clean sale could go if you didn't want fuss. Her eyebrows tipped up in that way she has that says she's listening with both ears. Depends, she said. But you? If you price it honest and pick the right buyer, a month, 5 weeks if the title search hits a snag. How often do you get snagged? I asked. Not often if the deed chain is clean, she said. I'll pull a preliminary if you want. Do, I said, and stirred my coffee. My hand was steady. I'm good at steady. At home, I dug out the first packet from when I bought 7C. The paper had gone soft at the edges like a blanket you've folded 100 times. My signature looked like I used to. More loops, less slope. I tucked it into the new folder with today's dates. I made a habit of writing exact times on the upper right corner of moments I might need later. 6:3, 10:14 a.m., left voicemail for Carmen. Snif 4:107 p.m. Carmen returned call. Prelim title clean. That's how you keep your own history. You timestamp the truth. If I'm honest, and I promised myself I would be in this retelling, the stakes weren't just financial and moral. They were also small and human. I like my mornings unrushed. I like my tea towel drawer organized by color. I like knowing that if I say no, the room won't rearrange itself to pretend I said yes. Whatever plan Ryan and Haley had, good-hearted or not, put my no in a chokehold. That is not how family works in my house. Not anymore. Some nights around that time, I'd wake up at 3:11 a.m., eyes wide open, the old digital clock casting red numbers like a tiny emergency across the dresser. I'd lay still and listen to the building, not my old one. The one I live in now, with its particular house noises, the AC sneezing on, the neighbor's dog turning a circle before settling, a freight train way out on the edge of town talking low to itself. In those minutes, I'd see Ryan the way he looked at 4. Grass in his hair, jelly on his cheek, and I'd swallow around a lump that belonged to both love and loss. Kids grow up into their lives. Parents grow up into letting them. But letting is not the same as surrendering your keys and calling it love. When the sale offer became real and the closing date slid onto the calendar like a magnet, I felt lighter than I expected and older than I wanted. I told Denise I might be over more for coffee now that I wouldn't be walking up 3 flights. She said, "Bring shortbread," and we laughed until we both snorted, which is how you know it's real. I didn't tell Ryan the day I moved my last box out of 7C. I wrapped the 3 photos, the ones that matter, in the sweater your father loved, the one with the elbow patched in navy. I labeled the box linens so nobody would get clever with it. The elevator stopped on 2 even though I pressed 7, like it wanted one last conversation. A man in a delivery uniform stepped in with a hand truck and said, "You good?" I said good and meant it. He nodded like folks who work for a living do when they see a job completed with no need for applause. When I got home, I set the photos on my dresser and took a picture of them with my phone. I wrote moved out of 7C 6:25 4:48 p.m. on an index card and tucked it behind the frames like a good luck charm. If anyone ever asked me when I closed that door for the last time, I could point to the exact minute. Control isn't about bossing people. It's about being able to answer your own questions with proof. I'm not naive. I know selling a thing doesn't sell the ghosts attached to it. The apartment was a chapter, not a spell. The real story was always about my place in my own life. And if I'm being plain, here's the whole stake. I will not be handled. That afternoon in the kitchen, after Ryan and Haley left, I sat at the table with the folder and stared at the letter on the thick paper, the one I'd hinted at when I said counsel. It wasn't a will. I'd already done that years ago with a witness who chewed peppermint like it was a hobby. This was different. It was a simple directive with 3 points, drafted by a calm woman in a gray suit who listened to me longer than anyone had in months. We'd met 2 weeks earlier at 2:30 p.m. sharp. I'd brought my spiral and my notes. She'd brought a pen that glided. "You want clarity," she'd said, not asking. "Yes," I'd said, and watched my shoulders drop an inch. In my head right now, I can still hear her voice as she asked me questions nobody else had thought to ask. What outcomes do you fear? Which phrases trip you? Where do you want your lines painted? I answered without apologizing. She wrote like a court reporter and then translated the law into my language. "We'll keep it clean," she said. "We'll make it hard to misinterpret." When I left, I had a draft on email and a date to sign the final in person. I printed the draft at the library that same day, even though we'd be signing a proper copy later, because I like paper when it counts. I didn't show that letter to Ryan. Not yet. Backstory matters when you're setting a boundary. It gives the boundary roots. But boundaries also need timing, and timing is a tool with teeth. I wanted my son to walk into our next conversation without the bright theater of, "You can't do this to me." I wanted him to feel the shape of the situation first, then hear the lines click into place like a seatbelt. Click, click, safe for everyone. Here's one more small detail. Because the small ones are the ones that teach you. The day before closing, I stopped by the credit union to deposit a check from Leonard's earnest money. While I waited, a woman at the desk helped an older man set up text alerts on his account. She said, "Would you like a daily balance at 6 p.m.? It helps some folks." He said, "Yes, please," with the kind of relief that floats. I added that alert to my account too. Now, every evening at 6 mug sharp, my phone taps my palm and tells me a number. It's not the number that calms me. It's the fact that the voice is mine. So that's the warm center of it. How I got here, why I did what I did, what legacy means in a house like mine. It's flour on my hands and names on paper. It's the smell of lemon cleaner and a door that locks from the inside. It's receipts I can lay down like cards and not a lick of malice in the deck. It's love that doesn't borrow my signature. When Ryan and Haley circle back, they will bring explanations like flowers, and some of those explanations might have truth in them. I will listen. I will hold the truth and let the leaves fall off the parts that don't belong. Then, when we're all looking at bare branches together, I'll take out the letter on thick paper and read the pieces that are theirs to hear. Not because I want to win, because I am done playing games I didn't agree to. And if you want a last little picture before we move on, evening came slow that day. I ate eggs and toast for dinner like a college kid and watered the spider plant that refuses to die. The sky turned that deep blue that makes porch lights look like stars on wires. I washed the skillet, dried it, and set it back in its slot. Then I walked into my bedroom, placed the 3 photographs precisely 3 inches apart on the dresser, and stood back. "We're okay," I said into the room. The room agreed. I didn't sleep badly. I slept like a detective, one ear open. By morning, the kitchen window was a rectangle of milk blue, and the smell of yesterday's lemon cleaner had mellowed into plain clean. I poured coffee, laid my spiral open, and wrote a new header like I was clocking in. Tells. Under it, I listed what I knew, not what I felt. Feelings are loud. Facts have indoor voices. First tell, the HOA fob request with a different mailing address. I called the HOA office at 9:01 a.m., right when they flipped their sign. "Good morning, this is Margaret from 7C, I said. "Could you read me the mailing address on the fob request you received for my unit on April 22? The clerk, her name tag said Lucy when I stopped by once. She sounds like a Lucy, pulled it up. "We have a request for an additional fob. Mailing address listed as..." She read a Maple Avenue number I recognized as Ryan and Haley's townhouse. Timestamp on the request, 2:43 p.m. I wrote it down. 4:22, 2:43 p.m. Fob rec. Address Harkris RH Home. Then I asked Lucy to note in my file that only my address may be used for security devices, and any others should trigger a phone call to me. "Noted," she said. I heard her nails click the keyboard. Music to my ears. Second tell, the contractor voicemail about demo on the wet bar. I saved it. then opened my phone's call log and took a screenshot with the date and timestamp visible. 5:07, 11:18 a.m., VM from Rico Kitchens. I printed it at the library for 10 cents and paper-clipped it behind the HOA note. Paper is old-fashioned. Paper also shows up in a room like a witness. Third tell, the city permit office email about a payment I didn't make. I called the number at the bottom, listened to 3 menus, pressed 0 twice, and landed with a woman named Patrice who could recite code sections like song lyrics. "Hi, Patrice. I received a receipt for a permit fee on my unit that I didn't request," I said. "May I know who's listed as the applicant contact?" "I can't share personal information," she said, textbook. "Understand," I said. "Let me rephrase. Is the contact my own email and phone on record?" Paper rustled. "No, ma'am," she said after a beat. "Phone ends in 52. Email is a Gmail that's not what we have for the owner." "Thank you," I said. "I'd like to withdraw any applications filed without owner authorization and flag my parcel for owner contact only." "Done," she said, fingers tapping. Note added at 10:37 a.m. I wrote that down too. The exact minute matters later when someone swears they were about to tell you. Small tells multiply when you pay attention. I set a hair across the edge of the hall closet door in 7C. Just a single silver strand from my brush, laid delicate like a tripwire. The next day, the hair was gone and the tissue paper in the photo box was refolded sloppy. I didn't go theatrical. I went to the office supply store and bought a $3 roll of tamper-evident tape, the kind delivery drivers use. I put a tiny piece inside the hall closet at knee height, never visible unless you crouched and cared. 2 days later, the tape read void in ghost letters. Entry without consent. Date bracketed by my visits. I wrote the window, 5:28-5:30 closet opened. More tells. Denise texted me a photo from the mailroom. Haley standing with a young couple in gym clothes, pointing toward the elevator, her hand making a sweeping and over here gesture. Caption, tour? Timestamp, Saturday, 11:22 a.m. I didn't respond with a flamethrower. I sent back a thumbs up and, 10 minutes later, texted Haley. Need anything at 7C? I'm nearby. She replied at 11:37. All good. Just grabbing mail. The little heart looked like it was printed on someone else's chest. On Monday, I visited the desk of the building's daytime porter, Ronald, who knows everything that happens between 8 and 4 because he receives it with a clipboard. I brought him coffee and a glazed donut because I was raised right. "Ronald," I said, "would you mind checking the guest log for 7C the last 2 weeks? I'm trying to reconcile some dates." He slid the binder around with palms like quiet boats and flipped pages. His finger landed on 5:29, 11:05 a.m. Haley +2, visitor passes issued. He didn't editorialize. I didn't ask him to. "Appreciate you," I said, and tucked the date in my spiral. Micro reveal, courtesy of the universe. I typed my address into a short-term rental site without logging in, just to see if any familiar photos appeared. The building has a distinct lobby. Our fork pretzel sculpture is hard to miss, so it's like spotting your cousin in a crowd. 4 listings popped up in a 3-block radius. One had photos that looked close. I clicked. The title read, Cozy Modern Near City Center, Walk to Everything. The kitchen backsplash was mine. That slightly crooked middle tile, bless it, gave us away. The host name was R&H Stays. They were clever enough not to show the unit number or exact address without a booking, but the map pin hugged my block like a sweater. I took screenshots of the photos, the profile, the house rules section that matched the pamphlet I found. No glitter, quiet hours after 10, no faces in art. Then I printed those too. I did not write the URL. I am not interested in online wars. I'm interested in proof. I told Carmen I wanted showings kept tight and quiet until we closed because I didn't want drama. She nodded like a woman who's seen all kinds of drama and knows how to keep it out of her purse. "I'll meet the inspector myself," she said. "You do not need to be present." We set appointments like we were placing chess pieces, legal ones. Another tell. A Venmo notification flashed on Ryan's phone while he leaned over to show me a funny dog video at brunch. The banner read, Deposit, July 4th WKND 7C, and a fireworks emoji, sender Marlene O. He tilted the phone away quick, that micro-flinch a mother can see through a brick wall. I didn't pounce. I asked him to pass the salt. Then in the bathroom, I set my timer and breathed slow through 10 counts so I wouldn't come back to the table throwing napkins. I didn't guess. I asked. That afternoon I called him. Honey, I said, are you renting my apartment for the 4th? A pause you could serve on a plate. We were considering options, he said. Nothing locked. Would you put that in a text? I said, Sunny. Sure, he said, and texted. We haven't locked anything for July 4th at 7C. We were just exploring. Timestamp, 2:18 p.m. 5 minutes later, Denise sent me a photo. She is everywhere because she does her laundry on Saturdays and talks to everyone. The lobby message screen with a temporary notice. Welcome. Marlene O. Check-in 3 p.m. Under an events header someone had set wrong. I saved the photo, screen grabbed the time, and printed it. The micro-lie glowed next to the micro-proof like twin candles. Solid evidence arrived by accident, the way truth often does, through a forwarded email. Haley must have meant to send it to Ryan and tapped my name by habit. Margaret sits above Ryan in her contacts. The subject line, July calendar plus cleaner. It contained a thread between Haley and a woman named Jazz Cleaning, with a spreadsheet attached. 7C turnover schedule, June-July XLSX. The message read, Can you squeeze a flip on 7:05 morning? Guests out by 10 a.m., next check-in 4 p.m. We'll leave the lockbox code. Also, Mom keeps stopping by, so make sure supplies are tucked away. My stomach went cold, then hot, then perfectly calm, like a lake pressing itself flat against wind. I didn't reply. I downloaded the attachment, opened it, printed the first tab, and slid it into the folder behind the HOA notes. Red pen at the top. Forwarded to me 6:12. 3:44 p.m. by sender. Error. Then I took a second copy and put it in my freezer under the peas because sometimes you want a copy somewhere fireproof. In a house that is still yours alone. Another brick. My bank. Flagged an attempted deposit into my account from a name I didn't recognize with the memo 7C MGMT, fee, June. I'd never authorized external transfers in. I went to the branch in person, no tickets, no bots, and sat with a woman named Rupa who wears bangles that sing when she types. That's odd, I said. I don't accept third-party deposits except pension and Social Security. She raised an eyebrow and blocked future attempts, then printed an external deposit attempt, denied notice with a date and reference number. Keep this, she said, sliding it across. People get bold. I liked how she said people, neutral as a lab coat. I paperclipped that too. By mid-June, my folder had weight. The kind you feel differently when you pick it up with one hand versus two. I flipped through. HOA fob request with their address. City permit contact mismatch. Tamper tape void. Visitor log Haley +2. R&H stays screenshots. Venmo banner deposit July 4th WCAND 7C. Lobby notice welcome Marlene O. The accidental forward with the turnover spreadsheet. Bank notice external deposit attempt denied. Every page had a date and a time. None of it outed an address. All of it anchored a story. Suspicion had walked across the room and sat down in a chair called evidence. Now, I needed something with a signature. The contractor call had come from Rico Kitchens. I dialed him back from my house phone so he wouldn't have my cell number, old habits, and said, Hi, Rico. This is the owner of 7C. I missed a call about demo on a wet bar? He hesitated. Oh, yeah, sorry, ma'am. Ryan said he had authorization to remove the wet bar and cap the lines. We were scheduled for Wednesday. Did you send a work order? I asked, like I was asking for a cookie recipe. I'd love a copy for my files. Sure, he said, businesslike now. He emailed a PDF titled WO7C Ryan last name, wet bar demo, PDF. At the top, my unit number. Under client. Ryan, with his business email. Under scope. Demo existing bar. Cap water lines. No shutoff required. Haul debris. Under authorization. A digital signature. Ryan's scribble. Date stamped 5:09, 9:54 a.m. I printed it twice, one for my folder, one for the freezer, and highlighted the unit number in the signature like I was grading a paper. I called Carmen. If someone tries to alter anything in 7C before close, I said, we've got a signed work order with my unit on it that I did not authorize. Carmen whistled, a single note. Good to have, she said. Also, the buyer is firm. He's moving because his lease ends. He'll play ball if anyone rattles a doorknob. We'll be fine. Good. Firm. Fine. Those 3 words sat next to my coffee like 3 bodyguards. Next, I needed my son's own words, clean, in context, not to trap him, to hold the mirror steady when everyone's heartbeat is up. So I invited Ryan and Haley to lunch at a diner where the tables are close and people behave themselves. I ordered the turkey club and iced tea. They arrived 5 minutes apart, like they hadn't planned to but did. I let them talk first. They came in hot and cooled a shade and started to angle. We were lining up an income stream to ease your costs, Haley said. We weren't trying to cut you out. Ryan nodded hard. Put that in writing for me? I said light as whipped cream. What? Ryan blinked. Text me what you just said, I replied. So when we're all calm later, we remember exactly. Haley's eyes narrowed a hair. She smiled anyway and typed. My phone buzzed. We thought hosting a few weekends at 7C would help with your HOA and taxes. We should have asked more directly. Timestamp, 1:22 p.m. I replied, thanks for clarifying. I didn't poke. I didn't expand. I let their own vocabulary sit there like a pebble in a shoe. The check came. I paid it. When we stood, I hugged my son, felt his ribs through his shirt, and tucked the memory away because love keeps collecting even when you're mad. Then I went home, slid the signed work order and the text into the folder and wrote, First solid evidence achieved. 509 signed WO. 614 text admitting rental plan. I was not building a case to win an argument at the dinner table. I was building a record to hold the conversation steady when someone tried to move the furniture with their tone. That's the difference between suspicion and evidence. One makes your heart pound. The other keeps your hands from shaking when you turn the page. The last reveal before everything tipped came from my own doorstep. A small square package waited on my porch, addressed to me at my home, return label from R&H Stays Supply. Inside, bulk-size hotel shampoos, individually wrapped soaps, and a laminated checkout checklist with bullet points in cheerful font. Strip beds, start dishwasher, take trash to shoot. I held it up and laughed, not kind, not cruel, just one bark at the audacity of the world to deliver me my first exhibit with free shipping. I set the checklist flat and snapped a photo with the date visible on my stove clock. 6:16, 5:03 p.m. Then I slid the laminate into the sleeve with the house rules brochure. They matched like cousins. That night I ironed a blouse, not because anyone would see me, but because crisp fabric makes my spine listen. I stacked the folder, my spiral, and a pen that doesn't blot into a tote bag and set it by the door. I made 2 turkey sandwiches and wrapped them in wax paper for later, because you never know when a conversation will run long. I slept with both windows cracked because I think better when the night air whispers. In the morning, I called the calm woman in the gray suit, the one who'd listened better than anyone in months. I'm ready to sign, I said. She gave me a time, 2:30 p.m. I texted Ryan. Let's talk tonight at 6 at my place. Bring Haley. I'll make something. He replied, okay. One word. Not a fight. Good. By noon, the sun had warmed the porch boards to the exact temperature of a hand you trust. By 2:30, my signature was dry on thick paper that said, in adult language, that my property is not a playground, that no one can obligate me to anything without my written consent, that any use or management scheme goes through me or does not go at all. It wasn't a weapon. It was a seatbelt. Click, click. At 6 miles sharp, the doorbell rang. I put the folder on the table, poured iced tea, and opened the door. Ryan's eyes were tight. Haley's smile was ready. The house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. You can talk hard truths over good food. People hear better with a plate under their hands. Before we start, I said, I want to walk through a few dates so we're looking at the same picture. I tapped the folder. Not to intimidate, just to say I'm prepared. Then I'll show you something I signed today. Then you can tell me what you were thinking and what you need. Then I'll tell you what I need. They sat. I opened the folder. The first page had 422 fob request address. Your home. The second had 507 contractor. VM demo wet bar followed by signed WO. 509. The third had the R&H stays screenshots. The fourth, 612, turnover schedule, forwarded by error. The fifth, 614, your text, help with HOA taxes. If you've ever seen a person start a sentence and then realize the sound coming out belongs to a different story than the paper on the table, you know the face they made. Shock's first cousin is recalibration. That's where part 4 begins. I set the first page in the center of the table like a placemat. Let's start here, I said. April 22. Extra fob request for 7C, mailed to your townhouse, time-stamped 2:43 p.m. I didn't raise my voice. I pointed to the corner where I'd written the time in red. Haley leaned in. That could be an admin mix-up, she said, bright as a TV anchor. You know how offices fat finger addresses. Lucy read it off the portal herself, I said. I asked her to flag my file owner address only. She added the note at 9:12 a.m. the next day. I have that time, too. Ryan stared at the paper like it might rearrange itself into a friendlier shape. We were trying to help you get organized, he said, softer now, like he wanted points for tone. Organized means I know about it, I said, and slid the next sheet forward. May 7th, contractor voicemail about demo on the wet bar. May 9th, signed work order with my unit number and your digital signature. I tapped the scribble he'd made. Rico sent it to me when I asked nicely. Ryan's throat moved. That was exploratory, he said. Nothing happened. Exploratory usually stops short of a signature, I said. Especially on a place you don't own. Haley tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and found a smile. We were modernizing, she said. That bar's dated. It would have raised value. For you. Modernizing is a lovely word, I said. Authorization is the other word you needed and didn't have. I didn't race. I turned the page like dealing cards. R&H stays, I read. 4 screenshots from a platform with my backsplash and your host name. House rules that match the pamphlet I found on my counter. No glitter made me chuckle. Cute rule. Messy to vacuum. We were testing the listing tools, Haley said. Everyone sets up drafts. Drafts don't take money, I said, and slid the next image across. Denise's photo of the lobby screen. Welcome, Marlino. Check in 3 p.m. Under it, I tucked the little snapshot I'd taken of the package on my porch. Bulk shampoos and the laminated checkout checklist. This arrived at my home, I added. From R&H Stays Supply. If this is a surprise party, y'all brought the cake to the wrong address. Ryan's eyes cut to Haley. Her smile held, but the corners went white. Marlene is a family friend, she said. It wasn't a rental. It was a visit. We thought it would be sweet for her to... Sweet visits don't come with turnover spreadsheets, I said, and set down the forward she'd accidentally sent me. The header glowed like a lit sign. 7C turnover schedule, June, July, XLSX. I had circled the line that read, 7-4 out 10 a.m. Next in 4 p.m., lockbox code. The little red note I'd written at the top, forwarded to me by error 612, 3:44 p.m., sat there like a witness who doesn't need to take an oath. This isn't a gotcha, I added. It's the picture. I want us to look at what is, not what we wish is. Ryan's mouth opened and shut. He shifted in his chair. Mom, you've always said you wanted to build. that you wanted us to think like owners. Like owners of our own things, I said. Not yours. Haley tried again, softening her vowels like sugar dissolving. You've seemed overwhelmed, she said. All the logistics, the fees, the stairs. We were stepping in so you could rest. There it was. The note behind the notes. Gaslighting doesn't come with neon. It arrives like a hand on your elbow steering you toward a chair you didn't ask for. I've seemed exactly like a woman who writes dates in the upper right corner, I said. And like a woman who closed on her sale at 9:12 a.m., funds cleared. I sleep fine. I get tired. Those can live together. Ryan rubbed his forehead, the old gesture from his father when a headache threaded behind his eye. We weren't trying to hurt you. Intention is a color, I said. Outcome is the shape. This shape is you making commitments for a place you didn't own, inviting people into a building where my name was on the line if anything went sideways, and lining up a stream that empties into your account first while I hold the pipe when it bursts. Also, the part where I keep finding out after the fact, that's a shape I don't wear. Haley looked at the folder like it had misbehaved. You're being so official, she said with a tiny laugh. We're family. This is weird. What's weird is being told I'm overwhelmed when I'm the only one in this room who time-stamped their own decisions, I said, and laid the text Ryan had sent from the diner on top. We thought hosting a few weekends at 7C would help with your HOA and taxes. We should have asked more directly. The words did their small work. His shoulders lost an inch of lift. Okay, he said. We messed up the ask. But Mom selling without telling us? That was extreme, I nodded once. It was decisive, I said. And legal. And irreversible. I let those three sit. Then I slid the final paper across, the thick one from the calm woman in the gray suit. And this, I said, is me drawing lines in ink. 3 points. 1. No one, child, friend, neighbor, has authority to bind me to agreements, access, or obligations without my written consent. 2. Any use of my property, accounts, or addresses requires my explicit, dated permission with scope and duration stated. 3. Any scheme purporting to manage my assets or spaces absent that consent will be treated as unauthorized and referred to council and, if needed, to the relevant office, HOA, city, bank, platform. Haley's smile slid off like a sticker that met heat. You're threatening us with a lawyer, she said, voice going sharp at the edges. I'm informing you of my boundaries, I said. I'm also letting you know that courtesy copies went to the HOA office and the city permit contact, both of whom now have my owner contact-only note in their files. This isn't theater. It's housekeeping, Ryan exhaled through his nose. This is messed up. What's messed up? I said, matching his volume. Is watching my child set up a lockbox code and a cleaning calendar on my place and tell me it's help while asking for my portal password as a surprise. What's messed up is a Venmo banner. Deposit, July 4th WKND 7C, popping up while you scroll a dog video, and then sending me a text 5 minutes later saying, we haven't locked anything, when the lobby screen says, welcome, Marlene. I don't need you to be villains to be wrong. He flinched at Venmo, glanced at Haley, then away. I covered your HOA, he said, reaching for that earlier favor like a life ring. 2 months. I put skin in. And then you tried to make that skin the down payment on control, I said. You call it skin. I call it leverage. I said thank you and don't do it again. You did it again? Haley's eyes brightened with a different tack. You forget things, Margaret, she said gently, like a nurse on TV. You told me last month you misplaced your car keys for 3 days. In the coat closet behind the blue scarf, I said. I wrote it down. Found keys 5:19, 8:11 p.m. And the next morning I put a hook by the door. I adjust. I do not hand over my life to avoid misplacing a key. She laughed a small, incredulous laugh. This is what I mean, writing down times for keys. It's not normal. What's normal, I said, is subjective. What's accurate is 10 digits in ink. When folks try to tell me I did or didn't say something, I don't need to argue feelings. I have receipts. Ryan's jaw worked. We're not out to get you, he said. But you have to admit your judgment about the market might be off. If you'd waited, Leonard's offer was cash, clean, and the close lined up with the HOA's month-end lockout and my dentist, I said. I countered twice for timing, once for price. I read every page. I initialed with my own hand. The bank printed a receipt that warmed my palm. If that sounds like poor judgment to you, that's a difference in taste, not competence. He slumped a hair. It just feels like you punished us, he said, and I watched the kid inside him peek out, grass and hair, jelly on his cheek. That kid made my heart do its old trick. Then the man's choices reminded me why the folder was on the table. Selling was not a punishment, I said. It was me choosing the lightest backpack. You two pressuring me to keep the unit so you could build an income stream using my name and address without permission? That's the part that deserves a consequence. A consequence? Haley echoed, cautious now. Accountability, I said. A mirror with good lighting. I closed the folder and folded my hands on top of it. Here's the discovery part, I said, because I like saying true things plainly. I know, with dates and signatures, that you were running a short-term rental out of my apartment. Listing, taking money, scheduling cleaners, signing a work order, without my consent before I sold it. I also know you did it while telling me I was overwhelmed, implying I needed handling. And I know you were ready to have guests on the 4th of July. The unit is no longer mine, meaning your guests would have arrived at a door that belongs to Leonard, who does not know you, and who has an HOA that now has a copy of my directive and the platform screenshots. That's a recipe for a mess. I chose not to leave you sitting in it. I shut it down before it happened. Halyshin tipped up a 1/4 inch. Shut it down how? I sent a brief factual email to the platform's trust team with screenshots. No doxing, just evidence. And to the HOA noting unauthorized listings using images of their common areas without permission, I said. I also called Patrice at the city to withdraw any pending applications on my parcel and asked her to flag the address. And I texted your Marlene. Yes, I looked up her number from a public post you were tagged in last summer to say the apartment is no longer available and she should confirm with the person who booked her. She responded, "Got it, thanks," with a thumbs-up emoji. You went through our friends? Haley's voice sharpened. I protected them, I said. And you? And the nice man who just bought his first place in the city so he could quit commuting from Katie? Ryan's eyes went damp. He blinked hard. You didn't have to embarrass us like that, he said. Embarrassment is a feeling, I said. Safety is a fact. If embarrassment helps the safety stick, I can live with that. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling fan, like maybe the blades could give him a different answer. So what now? He asked the room. Now, I said, we do 2 things. 1, you send me by text a full list of any dates you took money for 7C, soft holds, deposits, anything, and any vendors you engaged using my unit number. I will make sure no one shows up to a stranger's door. 2, we agree on new rules for how we do help in this family. In writing. No gray areas you can mistake for green lights, Haley swallowed. You're making it sound like we ran a scam. I'm calling a thing what it is, I said. Unauthorized use dressed as help. If you'd asked, I might have said yes to one weekend with me making the reservation and being the host. But you didn't ask. You acted. Ryan set his palms on his knees like he was bracing for a wave. We were trying to build something, he said. For us. For you. You don't build on someone else's foundation while they're still living in the house, I said. You invite them out on the porch and you talk about the blueprint. If they say no, you go draw a different house. Silence stretched. A taut, thin thing. The AC clicked on with a small sneeze. Outside, someone dragged a trash bin over concrete, the sound chalky and sure. Haley looked down at her hands. Ryan looked at me like he'd never quite seen me head on. You really signed this? He asked, tapping the thick paper. Yes, I said. At 2:47 p.m. today. The ink was still damp when I stopped by the HOA office with a courtesy copy. Ronald said hello. He liked the glazed donut I brought him. Haley's eyes flashed. So that's why he was weird with me this afternoon. Weird is him doing his job with new instructions on file, I said. Ryan put his elbows on the table, then thought better of it and folded his hands. Okay, he said finally. Okay. He seemed to try the word on for size. We'll send the dates and the names. He glanced at Haley. We'll unwind whatever needs unwinding. Haley opened her mouth, then closed it. When she spoke, her voice had lost its anchor gloss. I'm sorry, she said. And for the first time since we sat down, it sounded like her real voice. I pushed. I made plans like I was starring in them. That's a fair confession, I said. I appreciate it. Ryan let out a breath he'd been holding since April. I'm sorry, too, he said. For the signature. For the whole sneak. I thought if I just handled it, you'd see the upside. I see you, I said. That's the part I've always had. The upside comes second. Sometimes it comes at all. Sometimes it doesn't. What I can't do is let my own child convince me I'm foggy just because fog would make it easier to take the wheel. He winced and nodded. That wasn't fair. No, I said. It wasn't. I slid the folder closed and stood. Eat, I said, because bodies need fuel to make new decisions. Chicken's getting cold. We ate. Knives tapped plates. The rosemary did its mild, bright trick on the air. Nobody cried. Nobody stormed. We chewed and breathed and let the room change temperature. After dinner, I washed 3 plates and set them to dry in the rack, then walked back with a small notepad. I'm going to write down what we agreed, I said. You tell me if I miss anything. I wrote, you'll text dates, amounts, vendors by 10 a.m. tomorrow. You'll cancel and refund anyone who sent you money. You'll send me screenshots confirming cancellations. You will not use my addresses for deliveries or mail. You will not sign anything with my unit number, my name, or my addresses. All help requests go in writing. I'll reply in writing. Then I wrote one more line. If we disagree, we ask for a neutral third party we both respect to sit with us. Haley nodded like a person trying on humility. Ryan nodded like a person who had discovered the chair under him held. They each took a photo of the notepad page. Thank you for dinner, Ryan said, and his voice was his. He hugged me, not tentative, not performative, just my boy grown up finding his center. For 3 seconds, I let my nose rest on his shoulder and breathed in laundry soap and the ghost of sawdust from his job site. At the door, Haley paused. I did take your photos to get reframed, she said quietly. I shouldn't have done it without asking. They're in the hall closet at our place. I'll bring them tomorrow. Thank you, I said. Please don't buy new frames. I like mine, she smiled, small and honest. I figured, she said. They left. The night pressed its quiet face to the window. I sat with the folder again, not to gloat, not to grind, just to feel the weight of choosing truth over theater. When you lay paper on a table, people stop play acting quite so hard. It's hard to gaslight a ledger. I wrote in the spiral, 6:00, 7:22 p.m., R&H here. Showed fob request, WO, screenshots, turnover schedule, lobby screen, supply package. They attempted reframes. Help, overwhelmed, family friend. Noted, countered with times. Signed boundary letter presented. Agreements list dates vendors by 10 a.m. Cancel refund. Screenshots. No mail address use. No signatures. Written requests only. Neutral third if needed. Then I added, tone, defensive, recalibrated, contrite. No yelling. Added chicken. Before bed, I sent Carmen a quick text. We're squared here. She replied, good. Keys go to Leonard at 9 a.m. tomorrow. He's excited. I smiled at the screen and set the phone face down. I slept. Not like a detective this time. Like a woman who knows the light switch is where she left it. In the morning, my phone buzzed at 8:03. Ryan. Here are the dates we took deposits. 6/3, $150, 6/10, $200, Inc. 14, $150. Vendors, Jazz Cleaning, 1 turnover, Rico, no work done, Kiko, inquiry only. I'll cancel and refund now. We'll send screenshots. Haley followed with a separate text at 8:11. I have your photos. Bringing at noon. I'm sorry again. I replied to both, thank you. Noon works. At 9:07, screenshots rolled in, cancellations, refunds, a text to Jazz pausing any cleanings for 7C indefinitely, and an email to Rico canceling the work order with an apology for the confusion. I saved them to a folder on my phone marked 7C Closeout. The librarian in me smiled. At 11:30, I brewed coffee and set out 3 coasters. At 11:58, the doorbell rang. Haley stood there alone, holding a paper bag with my frames wrapped in the sweater your father liked. She offered the bag like a peace lily. No new frames, she said. Like you asked. Thank you, I said, and took the weight. In the kitchen, I slid the tissue back and saw the photos intact. One of Ryan with frosting on his nose. One of me and his father under a string of county fair lights. One of Mama holding peaches like treasure. The glass caught the morning and threw it back soft. Can I say one thing? Haley asked, not stepping past the mat. You can, I said. I really thought I was helping, she said. But I was also performing. For myself. For the idea of being someone who fixes things. I'm embarrassed it took paper to show me. She smiled without teeth. I don't want to be that person. Good news, I said. We're all allowed to be less of the wrong person by lunch, she huffed a tiny laugh. Okay, she said. Okay. She glanced toward the table where the folder still sat. Are we okay? We're on the road, I said. It's paved. Stay in the lane and we'll get somewhere worth going. She nodded and left. I put the frames on the dresser, 3 inches apart like I prefer, and pressed the sweater to my face for 1 second. Breathing in the clean cotton and the memory of his cologne that only I could still smell. All through that day, the quiet felt different, less like watchfulness, more like room. I made a sandwich. I watered the spider plant. The 6 p.m. balance text arrived like a bell. At 7, Carmen called. Keys transferred. Leonard says the brick wall already glows like honey. It does at 5, I said. Tell him to stand by the window then. I hung up and stared at the thick paper one more time, not to worship it, just to remind myself that clarity isn't cold. It's warm as a porch light. It says this way. Watch your step. You're not a ghost here. Tomorrow would be for the plan, not a secret one. A smart one. With competent help. With a room that wasn't just mine in it. I woke up with a list in my head and the kind of steadiness that feels like a good pair of shoes. Coffee, 2 slices of toast, then the spiral opened to a fresh page. I wrote 1 word at the top in block letters. Plan. Under it I printed 4 steps, each with a square to tick. 1. Council plus paper. SA. Platforms plus city plus HOA. A buyer, Paus Realtor. 4. Family plus neutral. I started where grown-ups start, with people who do this for a living. At 9 a.m., I was in the quiet office with the calm woman in the gray suit whose pen glides like a skate. Her name is Ellen. Her office smells faintly of eucalyptus and copy paper. I spread my folder on the table and slid the exhibits across. Dates, screens, that laminated checkout list like a prop that wandered off stage. Ellen didn't flinch. She doesn't flinch. She sorts. 3 buckets, she said, tapping the stack into a neat edge. Boundary, cleanup, future-proof. Boundary assigned, I said, and she nodded at the thick page I'd inked yesterday. For cleanup, she said, we'll send a brief cease and desist to your son and daughter-in-law. Not a threat. A reminder that any use of your name, addresses, or units, past or future, without written consent is unauthorized. We'll copy the HOA and, because you already sold, include a note to the buyer's agent confirming no obligations transfer. Tone factual, not flaming. Good, I said. I like factual. Flaming scorches the cook first. For future proof, she continued, we'll tidy what you already started. She drew 3 boxes on a legal pad. Revocable trust. Assets go in. You're the trustee while you're alive and well. And we'll name a corporate co-trustee to step in on incapacity so nobody close to you gets tempted. Spendthrift clause so no one can pledge expected gifts. Letter of wishes, plain English, attached. Durable power of attorney not to a family member. To a professional fiduciary we vet together. Healthcare directive updated with your preferences. We'll also draft a standing letter to your bank and HOA, authorizing them to call you before honoring any request that mentions your name paired with your addresses. And we'll open that 529 you've been meaning to. You'll fund it out of the proceeds with a set schedule. You don't need permission from anyone to be generous, and you don't need to be bullied into it either. Yes, I said. It felt like a porch light turned on. This way. Watch your step. She slid a folder toward me. Inside sat crisp drafts with placeholders highlighted like flagged hazards. Names here, 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 she said, tapping. We'll sign on Friday at 10 a.m. Bring your ID. I'll have a notary. She paused. Anything else you want this paperwork to say without saying it with a raised voice? Write it so a stranger can't accidentally help me, I said. And make it easy for the people who actually help, my professionals. No gray. Black and white, she said and smiled. My favorite colors. When I left, she'd already sent 2 emails. At 10:21 a.m., my phone pinged with a subject line. Gentle reminder unauthorized use, Unit 7C, now closed. The CCs, HOA admin, buyer's agent, me. It said nothing mean, only everything necessary, dates, receipts, and the sentence, all parties are reminded that Ms. Margaret's consent is required, in writing for any use of her name, addresses, former unit numbers, or property in any managerial capacity now or in the future. Step 2 was platforms, city, and HOA. Patrice at the permit office answered on the second ring like she was expecting a quiz. We flagged the parcel last week, she said. Any application pings your number now. I also filed your withdrawal on the previous submittal at 10:37 a.m. last Tuesday. She hummed a line from a song under her breath, then added, if anyone applies again using a different contact, the mismatch will force a manual review. Translation, nobody's sneaking a permit past a sleepy bot. Bless the manual review, I said. For the platform, I wrote my email like a nurse charting, calm, dated, attached. Subject, report, unauthorized listing images, unit no longer owned by me. I included 4 screenshots. That lobby photo from Denise, cropped to remove faces, the laminated checkout checklist, and the timeline. I used the phrase no consent from owner 3 times. At 11:06 a.m., I received a reply with a case number that looked like a license plate, Acker TNS 7419K, and the sentence, we have suspended the listing pending documentation. We will reach out to the host. I printed the email because patterns. 10 cents, paperclip, folder, HOA next. I walked into the office with a plate of lemon bars because sugar makes truth sit down at the table. Lucy, Nail's brilliant coral, took 1 bite and read my directive again. Owner contact only, she said, tapping it. Got it. We're also issuing fobs with photo ID now and logging unit owner signatures. She lowered her voice, and the board added a line about short-term rentals to the agenda tonight. 7 o'clock in the community room. Would you like to attend? Yes, I said. Is there a sign-up sheet? She slid me a clipboard. I wrote my name and, out of habit, the time, 11:32 a.m. Step 3, buyer and agent. Carmen met me at the unit to hand the keys to Leonard. He wore a polo tucked into jeans and the face of a man who's slept badly because his heart's been doing jumping jacks over a new mortgage. I heard a rumor, he said, scratching the back of his neck, about someone expecting to check in on the 4th. Rumor canceled, I said, handing him a printout of the platform's email with the case number highlighted. Listings suspended. HOA flagged. City flagged. If anyone shows up with a suitcase, they'll get a smile and directions to the nearest hotel. Leonard exhaled like a balloon you untie slow. I appreciate the heads up, he said. Also, fun fact, the brick wall does glow like honey at 5. Carmen wasn't lying. Stand by the window, I said. It'll make you sentimental in a way you won't want to admit. Carmen rolled her eyes fondly. I need both of you to sign my receipt for keys, she said, sliding a clipboard out of her tote. She does not leave gaps where confusion might set up camp. Initial here. Full signatures here. Date, time. We wrote the time, 12:08 p.m. The ink looked crisp on the white paper, like a small, obedient truth. Step 4. Family plus neutral. We'd written into last night's notepad plan that, if we disagreed, we'd ask for a neutral third party we both respected. I didn't pick a pastor or a friend. I took Ellen's recommendation and called a licensed mediator named Joy, who used to run human resources for a hospital and, as a result, has seen every version of, "We were just trying to help." Joy answered on the second ring. Her voice sounded like suede. "You're not in crisis," she said after I explained. "You're in clarity. That's a better place to mediate from." We booked Friday at 2 p.m., after my trust signing, with 30 minutes of prep by phone for each of us the night before. Before any of that, though, we had the HOA meeting. I changed into a clean blouse, put on shoes that didn't squeak, and carried my folder like a well-behaved dog. The community room buzzed with the sounds of folding chairs and opinions. A fan hummed in the corner like a big quiet beast. On the wall, a whiteboard held an agenda written in thick, careful marker: 1. Roof update. 2. Lobby art cleaning. 3. Security, fobs. 4. Short-term rentals. Mrs. Alvarez. The board president opened the meeting with a gavel she probably bought at a yard sale. "We'll be efficient," she said. "Roofs first. People care about roofs." Eyes softened when she said the contractor's name. Then came the art cleaning. Our fork pretzel sculpture apparently requires non-ionic surfactant, which is a phrase I enjoyed much more than the sculpture itself. "Security, fobs," Mrs. Alvarez said. Lucy read a new policy into the microphone. Photo ID required, form signed by the owner, no mailing to addresses not on file. Then, short-term rentals. A man in a golf shirt groaned. "Here we go," he said, and someone shushed him. Mrs. Alvarez lifted a hand. "We have a report of an unauthorized listing using images of our common areas," she said. "Unit number isn't on the listing, but we have reason to believe it was in this building. We also have a letter from an owner whose unit has been sold, who received supplies at her personal address for turnovers. We've already contacted the platform. We've updated our policies. We'd like to put on record a resolution. Any owner or non-owner who lists an apartment in this building for short-term rental without board permission will be subject to fines as outlined in Section 12.3 and will have fob access revoked. Additionally, the board will notify the platform and, if necessary, the city. May I speak?" I rose when she looked my way. I kept my voice backyard quiet. "I'm the owner who sold," I said. "Unit 7C. While still the owner, I discovered my kitchen in listing photos. A lobby screen welcoming a guest named Marlene, and a laminated checkout list that arrived at my home addressed from a company with my son's last name and the word stays. I don't bring this up to throw anyone under the bus. I bring it up because the bus exists." I held up my folder. "When it's your name on the line, paperwork is how you keep your dignity." A murmur rolled like a wave and then sank. Mrs. Alvarez nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Margaret," she said. "And thank you for sending the platform screenshots." She glanced at Lucy, who held up her phone. Trust and Safety replied, "Case number TNS 7419K. The listing has been suspended pending documentation. We've asked them to take down any images of our lobby. We'll add this case number to our minutes." That's when the public part happened, clean as a bell. The door opened and Ryan slipped in with Haley. They stood in the back, hands linked like kids late to class. I watched their eyes ping from the agenda to the board to me. I didn't wave. This wasn't my living room. It was a room where everyone's names live on paper. Mrs. Alvarez saw them too. She didn't call them out. She read the resolution into the record, line by line, with dates, with fine amounts, with the words, "Revocation of fob access." The board voted. The motion carried. The secretary wrote times in the margin. Someone coughed. A neighbor asked if glitter was still banned. We all laughed, and the room unspooled just enough to feel human again. On the way out, Ryan touched my sleeve. "We came to listen," he said, not asking for a stage. "That's the right verb," I said. Haley stared at the floor. "We didn't think it would go this far," she said. This is exactly as far as things go when adults choose structure over vibes, I said. It's not a punishment. It's a fence. When I got home, an email waited. Action taken. Host account review, just TNS 7419K. The platform had suspended the R&H Stays account for 90 days pending proof of authorization. The email used neutral language that still felt like a gavel. Unauthorized use of property without documented owner consent violates our community standards. I printed it. 10 cents. Paperclip. Folder. I'm building a small library of closure. I ate a leftover lemon bar at the counter and texted Ellen. HOA resolution passed. Platform suspended the account. She wrote back. Good. See you free 10 for trust signing. Bring a pen you like. I find it hilarious that lawyers care about pens. It makes them feel less like machines and more like carpenters. I slept easy and woke up earlier than my alarm. Friday came with a mild breeze and a sky the color of a new envelope. At 10 qualm sharp, the trust papers were fanned out like a deck. Maple Light Trust, the top folder read, because I name things after colors I like. I signed where Ellen pointed. The corporate co-trustee's name looked boring in the way that calms me. We initialed the spendthrift clause. We named successor trustees who are not my son, not my daughter-in-law. We executed the durable power of attorney with a professional fiduciary instead of family. We signed the health directive. We added the owner contact letters to the bank and HOA, already countersigned by branch and office. We set up an automatic monthly transfer to a 529 with a silly little start amount and a plan to increase it every quarter. Slow and certain. Ellen slid a slim letter across last. Letter of wishes. Not binding. Highly persuasive. It said what a will can't say in my own words. What I value. Why I give. How I want the people I love to treat my choices. It ends with a line that tasted like apple peel when I read it out loud. Generosity lives best in a house with locks that work. At 1:30, I had soup at the diner and read the trust binder like it was a glossy magazine. At 1:58, I walked into Joy's office for the mediation. A bowl of peppermint sat on the table like a joke about lawyers. We all took one anyway. Ryan and Haley arrived with faces like people who know this is good for them and still hate the treadmill. Joy set ground rules without theater. This is not about winning, she said. It's about finding a steady place to stand. We started with last night's notepad photo. Joy rewrote our bullet points on a whiteboard in tidier letters, then asked for specifics. What does no use of addresses include? She asked. I answered, no packages, no returns, no mail forms, no vendor accounts, no profile addresses on any platform, no listing photos taken in my spaces, old or new, without asking. She nodded. What does help in writing look like? Ryan asked. I said, you text me the ask in one sentence with a date. I reply yes or no with a date. If I say yes, we write parameters in that same thread. No phone calls afterward pretending we said something different. Joy added one more line I hadn't thought to write. No third-party surprises framed as kindnesses. She looked at Haley. You know what that means. Haley flushed and nodded. I do, she said, and the words sounded like they cost a little, which is what makes them worth anything. Then Joy turned to me. Margaret, what's one thing you commit to that helps them trust this isn't punishment? I will answer within 24 hours when they ask for help, I said. No leaving them hanging. And if I don't want to talk, I'll say that and offer a time I do. No mystery. We wrote it all down. We all signed. Joy emailed us a PDF while we were still sitting there and pressed the print button so hard it made me grin. We left with 2 folders, 3 peppermint wrappers, and a sense that the furniture in the house had finally stopped moving while we were sitting on it. You want a public reveal? Here's the version that counts. Not a shout in a restaurant or a scene in a lobby, but an entry in minutes, an email with a case number, a signed family compact, and a trust binder with tabs that click. The consequence didn't need a drumroll. It needed dates, signatures, and a room full of adults willing to put ink where their mouths had been. On the way home, I stopped at the credit union. Rupa waved me over and showed me my owner contact note now pinned to my account like a stubborn post-it. "They can't charm past this," she said, tapping the screen. She set my daily balance text to 6 p.m. on the new trust account, the same way as my checking. "2 bells," she said like a joke. I pictured the evening tapping my palm twice. One for today, one for tomorrow, both mine. At 6:03 p.m., the first bell arrived, Maple Light Trust, balance as of 18 WA. The second followed, checking, balance as of 18 DKR. I stood by the sink with my phone warm in my hand and thought how strange it is to feel a plan as a physical thing, a text, a binder, a line on a whiteboard drying into the air. At 7:12, Ryan texted, "Mediation notes attached. We're on board. Thank you for sticking with us." At 7:14, Haley, "I'm deactivating the R&H handle. We won't be listing anything. I'll send you proof." Proof arrived. A screenshot of the platform account reading, "Suspended, appeal ineligible until 9. I printed it. 10 cents. Paperclip. Back in the folder. And because I am who I am, I baked cornbread. Butter in a cast iron skillet, batter poured to a sizzle, oven running like a small engine. While it baked, I laid 3 photos on the dresser 3 inches apart and smiled at the space between them, the way the gaps make the frames make sense. I wrote in the spiral, "Plan executed, council, platform, city, HOA, buyer, family, neutral. Results, boundary letter acknowledged. Account suspended, HOA policy passed, keys transferred. Trust funded, DPOA executed. Fine opened, family compact signed. Next, aftermath." I turned off the light in the kitchen and let the house go quiet the way a stage goes dark between acts. Not emptiness. The pause that makes the next note land. I didn't need an alarm. My house woke itself. The AC sneezed on at 6:01, a dove clucked from the live oak, and the east windows put a pale stripe on the floor like tape marking a safe lane. I made coffee, opened the spiral, and wrote a new header, Aftermath. Then underlined it once so I'd remember I wanted results, not a recap. By 9, small confirmations began to land like steady rain. Ellen emailed a receipt for the trust binder filing, executed 10:12 a.m., notarized 10:16, and a PDF of the cease and desist she'd sent the night before. It wasn't mean. It was geometry. It quoted dates and work orders and ended, "Further use of Ms. Margaret's name, addresses, or former unit number without her written consent will be referred to the appropriate authorities and treated as unauthorized." I printed it. 10 cents. Paperclip. Folder. At 10:23, an auto-reply from the platform with the case number, TNS 7419K, updated. Host account access restricted for 90 days. Listing images removed pending documentation. I clicked the old link out of habit and got a blank page and the sentence, "This stay is no longer available." I didn't screenshot that. The emptiness was enough. At 11:05, the city sent a 1-page letter signed by Patrice, her initials a neat ribbon. Withdrawal acknowledged. Parcel XXX flagged for owner contact verification. I traced the time on the corner, 11:05 a.m., because numbers are the bones of memory. Around noon, a small square kindness knocked. Denise stood on my porch with 2 peaches in a paper sack and a grin. "I like a woman who shows up to the meeting with receipts," she said. "Also, Lucy says your lemon bars have the board eating out of her hand." "Sugar makes bylaws sit still," I said. We laughed like kids who'd gotten away with something honest. That afternoon, I carried the trust binder from the table to the shelf and back again, like I was teaching a puppy where its bed was. The tabs clicked. The plastic sleeves held. "Maple Light Trust," the spine read in black label tape. I put it next to Mama's recipe book and the fire-safe box that holds the deeds to my life. Under the binder, I slid a slim envelope Ellen had labeled, "Letter of Wishes, not binding, highly persuasive." The first line, my first line, written in my own words, still made my chest loosen. I have spent decades holding my own pen. The last line tasted like apple peel. Generosity lives best in a house with locks that work. At 2:14, my phone chimed. Screenshots from Ryan rolled in. Refund issued, 6/3/150. Refund issued, 6/10/200. Refund issued, 6/14/150. A text to Jazz Cleaning. We won't need 7C turnarounds. Thank you and sorry for the confusion. An email to Rico. Please cancel WO7C. Unauthorized. Apologies. A follow-up to me. Done. Proof attached. We'll handle any apology calls you want us to make. I saved every image to a folder on my phone labeled 7C Closeout, then wrote in the spiral, upper right corner. 2:14 p.m. Refunds confirmed. Vendors canceled. At 4:05, the HOA posted minutes from last night's meeting. Mrs. Alvarez writes like she talks. Clean and tidy, no drama. Under short-term rentals, the resolution appeared. Unauthorized listings using images of the lobby and common areas are prohibited. Fines per Section 12.3, revocation of fob access on second violation. Caster TNS 749K noted. Owner contact verification required for all device requests. A line at the bottom made me smile. Glitter remains banned. I printed the page, added it to the folder, and slid a copy under my magnet that says I can fix this, I'm a mom. By 5, I felt the old clock of the city begin its honey routine. I walked to the park behind my block and sat on a bench that looks west. The light did its alchemy on the brick building 2 streets over, the way it used to on mine at exactly 5:02 in October. A kid tossed a football to his dad. It stuttered in the air, then found hands. The sound it made when it hit palms felt like an answer. Thup, thup. In my pocket, my 6 p.m. texts were waiting like 2 chimes, checking and trust, and I liked knowing they would tap me, steady as heartbeats I could prove. You want consequences? Here's one with a receipt. The platform kept R&H stays offline all summer. We didn't crow about it. We also didn't pretend it didn't matter. Haley sent me a final screenshot in August. Account access restored in design, with restrictions, and a photo of her deactivated handle. I'm not built for gray, she wrote. I'm better with black and white. That line earned a little amen in my kitchen. Here's another. The HOA's new fob policy outlasted the heat. In September, a man in a golf shirt at the desk tried to sweet-talk Ronald into issuing a device for a buddy staying over. Ronald tapped the new form and said, "Owner signature only." The man huffed. The form held. Rules aren't rude. They're ramps you can use in the dark without stubbing your toe. The 4th itself passed smooth. No suitcase in the lobby, no Marlene looking lost. Leonard texted me a photo of his new ZZ plant in the kitchen and the caption, "Quiet hours observed by me and my book," with a laughing face. At 5 o'clock, he stood by the window, sent me a picture of the brick's first turn toward honey, and wrote, "You were right." I replied, "It's the only time a brick wall feels like a promise." Weeks later, Leonard invited me over for coffee. I brought a pothos cutting in a chipped mug, the sort of plant that forgives you even if you forget it on vacation. The place smelled like new paint and cinnamon. He'd moved the couch off the wall and put a small rug down, jute, the very kind on Haley's whiteboard, but with a basket of dog toys in the corner that said, "Lived in," like a handshake. We stood at the window at 5:03, and I let the light write the same stripe across my memory. "Thank you for shutting down the thing," he said. "I bought peace, not a revolving door." "You bought a home," I said. "You shouldn't have to negotiate for your own doormat." He grinned and pointed. On the hall side of his door, he'd kept that ridiculous welcome friends mat somebody put down before the close. "I turned it around," he said. "Now I see it when I leave, and it's for me." We laughed because sometimes the smallest edits are the most honest. My family's aftermath wasn't a movie montage. It was a series of texts that arrived on time, a mediation PDF we all signed and didn't shove in a drawer, a habit of asking in one sentence and waiting for a yes or a no. Joy's words lived on our phones. No third-party surprises framed as kindness. Twice in August, Haley drafted, "We've got this," and then deleted it and sent, "Can we bring dinner Thursday at 6? We'll take our dishes home." And I wrote back, "Yes or no, Friday works," and nobody melted. Ryan started running all his big ideas past his own bank and his own boss instead of borrowing my signature. In late September, he texted a photo of a small duplex on the east side with the caption, "We're putting in a bid with our money." I read it twice and felt the rare pleasure of correcting, "Nothing. We didn't pretend there hadn't been a breach." We made a ritual of not pretending. On the first Sunday of the month, we had coffee with no agenda. Whoever hosted wrote the time and the address on the group text like a flight plan. We made small notes. Sunday 10-11 coffee, no logistics, so nobody accidentally slipped a proposal under the napkins. It sounds silly. It worked. There were apologies that weren't performances. In July, Haley took the paper bag with my frames out of her trunk, carried it in, and handed it to me without a speech. "No new frames," she said. "Like you asked." We wrapped the frosted nose photo back in the old sweater, and I stood the frames 3 inches apart on my dresser like always. Haley's eyes got glassy. She blinked. "I thought I was helping," she said. "But I was writing you out of your own life." She didn't ask me to do the labor of comforting her. I appreciated that almost as much as the apology. We did a harder thing, too. We repaired sideways. I called Jazz and said, "I'm sorry you got ping-ponged. That wasn't fair." She laughed, professional and kind. "Lady, I clean for bachelor parties," she said. This was not the worst of my June. I paid her for the one turnover she'd blocked time for, even though it didn't happen. The receipt read, "Paid 7/2/209 p.m. That timestamp mattered only to me, but that's enough. And Rico? I called him myself and said, "I appreciate you sending the work order. Please don't take jobs in my spaces without seeing my name on authorization," he said. "Ma'am, I learned that lesson today," and I could hear the shop radio in the background, playing a song I loved. In 9, I mailed him a lemon bar. Recipe because men who swing hammers deserve desserts that don't crumble. As for public accountability, the HOA minutes live on a website, and the resolution sits there like weather, just how it is now. The platform's case number exists in their system. It will never mean anything to most people. It means plenty to the handful of us who need it to. Ellen's binder sits on my shelf. The corporate co-trustee's name is boring in the most calming way. The spendthrift clause will outlast everyone's tempers. Those are the revenge pieces, if you need that word. They don't look like a plate flipped in a crowded restaurant. They look like locks working when you shut a door and expect the click. There were micro-tests afterward, because life is petty even when it's kind. In August, Ryan texted, "Can I use your address to get a contractor discount?" Old habit dressed as efficiency. I replied, "No. Owner contact only means not my address. 2. He wrote back immediately, "Right. Thanks." 2 days later, he texted a photo of the discount he got by asking for his own small business account, and a message, "Proud of myself for doing it the grown way." I sent back the thumbs up emoji and then, because I am my mother's daughter, remembered to save the receipt. Money did its quiet work too. My 6 p.m. texts hit like bells, checking, trust, and I kept my monthly $5.29 transfer small and steady. A drip people can't hear, but that fills a bucket all the same. When I upped it in September, I wrote the new number on a sticky note in the binder, 9/15/529 bump. Remember why. The why is the picture in my head of a kid I don't know yet opening a book under a lamp, not counting days between paychecks before they can register for classes. That's how revenge becomes repair. You point the energy at a future you will never inhabit and invest anyway. There were pieces I let go of as part of the aftermath, because a good ending makes room. I donated the extra set of sheets labeled 7C, guest, to the women's shelter. The receipt rustled in my glove compartment until I filed it with the others. I kept one towel, the navy one with the snag I always meant to fix, and cut it into rags. I used one to oil my cast iron skillet. It felt a little ceremonial, a little practical, exactly my kind of church. The best micro-reveal came from a place I didn't expect. My son's face when he didn't need to prove anything. In October, he showed up early for Sunday coffee, beat Haley by a mile, and stood in my kitchen with a shy smile like the one he wore at 12 when he asked for a later curfew. "I told my crew we don't do we'll just use mom's info anymore," he said. "I told them my mom writes down times and I'm trying that." "That's a reputation I can live with," I said. He nodded toward the spiral on my table. "Do you really write the time for everything?" "Not for everything," I said. "But for anything people like to argue about later?" "Absolutely," he laughed. "I used to think that was fussy," he said. "Now it looks like armor you can wear to dinner." We ate cornbread at 10:03 a.m. and said nothing else about armor. We didn't need to. If you need a public moment, we had one more, months later. The HOA put a small line on the bulletin board next to the pretzel sculpture. "Thank you to owners who brought documentation and patience." It wasn't addressed to me. It didn't need to be. Ronald gave me a nod the next time I passed the desk, and I handed him a glazed donut just because we both remembered why. The last thing to close wasn't a case or a folder. It was a loop. In November, I took a slow walk to the park at 5 and stood against the fence while the brick did its honey magic. A woman next to me, stranger, gray braid, said, "You come here at this time on purpose?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Me too." We watched in silence until the light slid off and gave the wall back to the practical world. On the way home, my phone tapped me twice. Sixth, first, and I let those taps count like a pulse. When I got back, I put 3 photos on the dresser 3 inches apart. Ryan with frosting on his nose. Me and his father under county fair lights. Mama with peaches like treasure. I straightened one frame, turned off the lamp, and listened for the house to settle. It did. One small creak like a satisfied sigh. This isn't a story about selling an apartment. It's a story about refusing to be managed out of your own life, and writing that refusal in ink so the world has to read it. My kid learned something. His wife did too. The building learned a policy. The city flipped a switch. A platform wrote a case number. A trust got funded. A future kid's college fund ticked up 1 notch. The next time someone tries to help me by moving my hand off my own pen, they'll feel the paper under their fingers and the fence at their shins. And me? I got the only revenge I ever wanted. My choices steady and mine, clicking shut like a well-made lock. Now, if you guys like my Sotri, please like and subscribe and also watch these 2 videos on the screen. You will like it, surely.